And we are live. Welcome everyone to another OSR tabletop with myself. I changed my title, so it's either DM Bloodworth or sometimes it is Castle Keeper Bloodworth or Chronicle Keeper Bloodworth because I've been running Amazing Adventures lately, and or whatever, Game Master or whatever. So I just put Bloodworth in today because we're talking about a whole bunch of things. I got a volume coming through. So sorry about that. And I am joined today by Stephen Chenault of Troll Lord Games. Welcome, Stephen.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so really excited, to have Stephen on for, it's been a while, I think, since been on the channel, and there's been so much going on, just in the hobby in general. But I mean, Troll Lord Games, and I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass either. I mean, Troll Lord Games is on fire the last, couple, weeks to months and everything. You seem to be, Troll Lord Games seems to be always like one step ahead of the latest hobby. I don't want to say controversy, but you guys were right out there out of the gate with the OGL in January of 2023. Came out and said, "Hey, we're shifting. We're shifting to the." I don't think he called it Reforged at the time.
No, we didn't. Yeah,
but that's really what you did. You jumped right off the gate. Probably one of the first publishers to do so. I think it took you about 2 days to say, "Hey, we're washing our hands of this and we're going to just go with our own thing." And so now with the tariff talks and everything, and that controversy, but I wanted to ask you, because you've been printing your own products for quite some time.
Yeah, very long.
All right. So when was your plan to expand? Was that a response to the tariffs, or that was something you already had in the works?
Well, it's one of those things we've so we started printing in 05, roughly 06, and we really didn't, because we didn't have any idea what we were doing. It took us a while to kind of work out some kind of procedure. In the very, very early days, we would print the covers and the books, but we would have to take them somewhere to get bound and then take them somewhere else to get cut. I mean, it was this whole laborious process. So over time, we slowly kind of built that up. And the print shop itself has gone through, it's done really well, and then it didn't do really well. And then when Mark Sandy left back in 2012 or 2015, whatever that was, we kind of just shut down printing anyone other than Troll Lord Games products. It was just really me, Todd, and Davis when Davis could show up. But in the last 5 years or so, I would say somewhere around in there, a little bit, probably just before COVID, things began picking up very, very rapidly. And I think there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. 5th edition was doing really well, so there's more people pouring into the market. Our quality, and the books have always been well bound and whatnot, but the art quality improved. I think there was just a lot of changes that happened that kind of drove everything forward as Castles and Crusades began to get an ever-growing footprint. Kickstarter's picking up all the business. So I began to kind of, in my mind, think we've got to do something with the print shop. It can't sustain like it is because our numbers are getting too big and we have too many titles. We had 150 active titles, something like that.
Wow.
Keep all of those things in print all of the time was, it's very challenging. And about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I started thinking I'm going to have to get a bigger machine. We got a decent printer, but it's not real fast. So we need something that prints a lot faster. So that's been kind of floating around in my head. To do that, we need a bigger footprint. So now we're going to need more space. We're expanding into more warehouse space. So all of this is slowly building over time. But I know none of it's relevant unless I have the people in place that can actually do this, because I can't take time off to go do all this printing and all of that stuff. So about a year ago, Dakota McMurray, my nephew, had been working for me for many years, going to conventions, running Gary. He didn't run GaryCon, but he was at the GaryCon booth and all that business
Right.
forever. And he had been kind of chomping at the bit to get, to start working for TLG. So he and I sat down. I think we had about 3 different lunches over about 3 months last year, when I basically said, listen, I need someone to come in and manage the mailroom and the print shop. And it's a factory job, meaning to say that it's maintaining the equipment, software updates, mechanical fixes, all of these things. He was more than happy to do that. He's extraordinarily apt mechanically, so tackling the binder and the cutter and all that was easy for him. Software, he got in and read instructions. It was crazy. I was like, "What are you reading instructions for?" Downloaded this whole book. So he kind of dove into it, and as soon as he dives in, he's got these ideas that he wants to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got the person in place to help me manage this. Now I've got to figure out what I'm going to do next. Now, I follow politics, and we don't need to get into all of that stuff, but I follow. So I knew if Trump got elected, I knew what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some tariffs, and there were going to be some wicked ones. Now, it wouldn't impact TLG that great because we print everything in the United States, and even if we don't print our hardcovers, we have printed in the United States. Our boxes are made in the United States. Everything's made in the U.S. So the tariffs weren't going to impact me, other than I knew that a lot of people are going to pull back from overseas printing and start printing here, and it's going to clog the works quite a bit.
Right.
So this whole time, this past 6 months, my wife and I have been poking around for land to see if we couldn't find something, a nice piece of property to build something on. Because fan of ownership, I really don't like to rent if I don't have to. I want to own, TLG.
Right.
It's just better all the way around. Renting is cool, but I get that you got to do your own maintenance when you own it, but that's part of owning it, right?
Right.
So we've been poking around for quite a bit, and then when the tariffs hit, in January, and everything kind of started spiraling, we began to really aggressively look, and I could feel this kind of pressure coming. I thought, I've got it. Something's got to give. And then I started getting at GaryCon and post GaryCon calls from some of my peers saying, "Hey, can you gear back up can you take outside print jobs?" And I was like, sure we can. Well, now as soon as I start taking outside print jobs, they're like, okay. And then we had to turn one huge one down in the midst of all this, gigantic, because I couldn't get it done in time for the convention. So I had to turn one down, and that's not conducive right now. So all of these things are coming at me, and I guess about 3 weeks ago, right around the time Trump put the first 125% or whatever he did on China, and that's when all of my peers went kind of the panic mode set in. And my wife and I got in a car. I took a Thursday or a Friday off, and we drove up to Beebe, Arkansas, which is where I've been looking. And it's one of those fate things. I think I've kind of followed the whole fate. We're just driving around looking, and we look at a good half dozen pieces of property. But she sees this small sign that has I can't remember the name. It's like Cowboy Realty or something. And she said, "Hey, I want to call these guys." So no one answers. So we just go to their office, and it turns out that it's Keaton and Logan, these two guys standing there in the kind of warehouse side of things. And we start telling them what we need. And Keaton's like, "Oh, I can hook you up. We can get you set up." And the guy standing next to him he owns a construction company. He says, "Well, we can build whatever you need." I'm like, "Okay, well, this is all fate. Let's let's make this happen now." Right. So we brought them on board, and Keaton was fantastic. We scouted a dozen properties, found the absolute perfect piece of property. We went ahead and bought that. But we're under contract. We haven't physically bought it yet. But we're under contract for that, and they asked for the building plans. I got some of my trusty RPG graph paper out, and I graphed out my building just like you would a dungeon. Sent it over to them. We had the meeting on it yesterday, so we've already got price quotes and everything. So we are barreling forward on this thing. So I think the pressure was building, and that tariffs, to answer your questions, when the tariffs landed and everyone panicked, I thought, all right, let's do this thing. Let's do it.
Right. So now all you need is a fleet of trucks, and you'll have the full vertical integration going on, right? It's like
We do have enough room. The property is very large, so I could put quite a few trucks there.
Yeah, you're following the Andrew Carnegie, pattern of get it from natural resource to
all the way.
the store. You need a storefront too, right?
We
although those are kind of those have been replaced for the most part. But yeah, I mean, it's really good to see that your response, is a well, how do we resolve this? How do we fix this? Instead of let's point the finger at where to blame or woe is me or anything like that. It's just like how can we move forward? And on top of that, much to your credit, is that you're saying, well, how can we help others? That might be, and that's the real expansion that I think needs to be pointed out to, is that you are going to potentially bring in some third party printing, and that was one of my questions for you. Was like, is that going to open the door for more publishing on your side as well as printing?
We've talked to one. I've talked to, probably since I put the State of the Trolls out last week, I've talked to roughly 20 different publishers of varying sizes. And the most remarkable thing I've discovered is that we, as here in this country, I think we've really succumbed to the idea that nothing is made in the United States, and that's just not true. There's manufacturers all over the place. I've got 4 different box makers that I work with. 2 of them do platforms, just like you would see in Monopoly. Sorry, whatever.
Right.
Made here, but I think that we've kind of convinced ourselves that it's not, and that we have to buy stuff at Walmart or Target or whatever. And it isn't the case. You might pay a little bit more, you might not. It kind of depends. So that was the first wave of questions that I got, and I'm just directing people to wherever they want to go. But we've talked to one publisher about bringing their stuff into the Troll Lord, things we can publish it, and I'm not really pitching the TLG print facilities hard right now, because I'm right in the middle of buying the new printer, and I kind of want to get it set up before we do much of that. So we've really we'll probably see more publishers come to TLG, but I'm also very happy to direct people to other printers. I work with a good, easily 6, probably 8 different printers here in the United States. And, I'll send anyone in any direction. I always ask that printer, I'll say, hey, can I send a referral your direction? And they're all like, yes, please do, send us more business. And I've been redirecting it quite a bit. So I think that a lot of publishers are going to be pleasantly surprised, what they can find. And I'll be happy to help. Anyone out there listening, I'll be happy to help, any way I can.
Yeah, that's I'm sure that's much appreciative, and it's appreciated, and it like I said just before you came on, was like, what a 4 months you've had, because there's just so much, just so much coming out. It's like I can't keep up with your live streams. It's always bang 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 news, and you had a live stream yesterday, and there was even more big news coming out of that as well. I know you probably can't talk a lot about it, but probably a few little nuggets. So the Gary Gygax estate, and what's some of the stuff that you were really hoping for coming out of that now?
So the estate's been extremely good to work with. I mean, I talk to the attorney all the time, 3 or 4 times a week, 2 or 3 times a week, and the courts have been very generous in giving us. Of course, now because everyone out there has been supporting the Kickstarters and the pre-orders that we've done, we've been able to send money to the estate to help pay down, which is clearly, I mean, and not to be mercenary about it, but the courts and the attorneys up there, they don't care about it. It's not their concern, right? Their concern is to make sure that this money that is owed to whoever it's owed to, and I've never asked. I don't know. That's none of my business. It is squared before all of this can go back. And so we've been very happy about that. I was extremely happy about Castle Zagig's opening. We did 600,000 on that backer kit campaign. With over 2,000 backers. I think it was very, very good. I was super excited about that. And with the news that we had yesterday, just before my live stream, the court awarded us rights to do the Gord novels. So we'll be doing Gary Gygax's Gord novels, Gygax's Gord novels. So I'm super jazzed about that. I mean, it's just there's so much, and we've got to get to Hall of Many Pains. There's so much now on the plate, which is fantastic. It'll keep us busy for the next 2 years, which for me personally is, I promised Gary, I promised him that we would do this stuff before he died, not knowing that he was going to die.
Right.
I suspect he knew something was up. I just have this intimation, but so we can finally kind of, from a personal perspective, I can do that. But also for the community, this is, as you know, Gary Gygax's stuff is really good. It's not, it's not a myth. It's really good stuff. So it'd be nice to get it out to a younger crowd.
Right. Well, certainly challenging if you're running any of his adventures. It's like be prepared to be showered with treasure and a lot of blood and death along the way as well. So they're not for the timid.
No. It's
with
funny
with the Gord novel. So
go ahead.
I'm sorry. With the Gord novel, so that opens you up to obviously going and reprinting the Gord novels in a different form or in their regular standard novel form.
I think that what I want to do on that is the regular paperbacks. We're going to do, there will be a whole bunch of other stuff. I had a long conversation with Luke yesterday. We're going to do audiobooks. I know that that's a huge thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we're going to do the audiobook route, paper book. I'll probably do, I don't think I have one handy. I'll probably do a paperback and then a cloth version. And for those who don't know, this is some of my esoteric. This is the Book of Enoch. Some of my esoteric reading. But the cloth is going to be just that. It's not
like that. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll probably do a cloth version as the collector's version, not a leather book. So you can get a hardcover if you want it. But I'm really kind of. I think the paperback is the way.
Yeah.
It's where it belongs.
Well, I'm telling you, the audio is right up my alley because I have all the original novels. So it's like but the audios, because I commute about an hour and a half each way to work, when I do work. And so audio is the way for me. But does it also allow you to take the Gord stories and convert them to a Castles and Crusades adventure?
So I'm going to say the court has awarded us this contract.
Wow.
But I have to write the contract up and get it signed. So
that
it still could go awry. I don't think that it will, but I'm going to include that in it. I'm going to try to have in there, or not try and put in there that not only the novels, but merchandise, a T-shirt, adventure modules, stuff like that, to really kind of bring the whole thing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a problem with that.
Yeah, because I know a lot of things like with some of the licenses that I'm familiar with, like the Conan the Barbarian license is the written form is obviously public domain because it's well over almost 90 years since he's passed. But each individual way that you look to distribute that, it could be a different license holder. I mean, currently it's under, Heroic Signatures. They own it all. So they own the comic books. They have the video game. They have the, licensing. They have the tabletop role-playing game licensing and all of that, or board game and whatnot. But it wasn't always the case. It used to be fragmented, amongst different companies, so every once in a while you'll hear of a license where one company will hold this part of it and another company holds another. So it's really good to hear that you're actually able to, hopefully be able to put it all out there, and we'll be running around with, Troll Lord Games Gord shirts on. It's like,
well, you're right, because when a license gets fractured, the quality control goes down. Some may have great quality, some don't, and then it's this whole thing. So
yeah. Well, that's really, really good news to hear. Now I'm sure that there's probably unpublished works as well of Gary's that there's also potential for.
I've heard, I haven't seen them. I've heard rumor of stuff, but one, I want to make sure it's Gary Gyaks, if we're going to do that, because there's stuff that he was doing all the co-writing with. But yeah, hopefully at moving forward, we can get into some of this stuff that's never seen the light of day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just get to some of these comments here. I know someone you're Agile Monk's favorite person in the hobby, I think. Where do you put that?
Agile, excellent. Agile, I got your email. I don't know if you got my response, but I did.
So definitely wanted to put that out there. And of course, Agile and my ear trumpet has been struck by lightning. Thank you for your long-standing memberships and your generosity and giving out gifts and such. So a bunch of people have gained memberships, on my channel, which opens you up to play in any of my games right now. So I'm currently running 3 different campaigns. So I'm running Amazing Adventures on my Tuesday nights. All right, and that was my Castles and Crusades group beforehand, and then before that was AD&D First Edition, and then I'm running Shadow Dark on Saturdays, and I'm running AD&D First Edition on Friday. So I run 3 days a week and everything. Try to mix it up a little bit. What games do you run? I mean, other than your own, because I'm sure you probably run your own, but do you run any or do you play in anything else? Or
I run. I'm like the worst gamer of gamers, because I played when we got the little brown books back in the 70s. We played the little brown books until Davis got Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the Monsters and Treasures, and the Player's Handbook. And then we switched to AD&D, and I played AD&D until 2006, almost exclusively. I remember playing Gamma World. I played Twilight 2000 once, and I think that's it. And then after 2006, it was Castles and Crusades, other than a very, very short stint in a game called is it Dark Heresy? Does that sound like a game? Dark Heresy?
Yeah, Dark Heresy. Or that's the second title of something, right? It's something like
Dark Heresy-esque thing, I think. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So I played Dark Heresy, and then somewhere in all that I played Original Traveler back in the 80s, and that's it. Those are the only games I've played. I didn't even play the Expert or the basic set. We just played AD&D. So I'm kind of an AD&D hound. I love that game. And then a Castles and Crusades guy, and I love that game. Beyond that, I don't branch out very much, sadly.
Yeah, I would love to see something along the lines of like a Modern Warfare using the siege system and everything. That would be really cool. Like, I mean, Twilight 2000 was part of the reason why I first played Twilight 2000 in like the mid 80s, and I was in the Army by 90. So there might have been a connection there. Although my father-in-law being a World War II vet, that was also pretty probably important along the way. And 1990 was a crazy year, as well. I was like, I wonder, do we wait and see if we get drafted, or do we just go? Because I was like 23, no family, just finishing up the first part of my college, and I was like, and my father was like, don't get drafted. It was like, if anything, pick. You get to pick your branch, pick your MOS. So go along with that. And
you and I joined up at the same time. I joined up in '92, so it was
yeah. So it was actually I signed up. So I signed up in the summer of '90, and then I guess there were just so many of us. Leading into Desert Shield, there was so many of us that they had to delay. It was like Fort Jackson was backlogged. What I'm saying? Talk about not having a recruitment problem. So I actually drilled with my eventual reserve unit like 5 months before I ever went to basic training. And then when I went to basic training, they held us up for like another 3 weeks in TRADOC before basic training started, because they had to wait for the next cycle. So by the time I finished up with my basic and my AIT, Desert Storm was already over practically. It was like boom, 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 done.
I remember I joined in like August or September of '90, and like you, it was delayed. My basic began in January.
Yeah.
And I went, and it was delayed a week, and then I did basic, and then I went to AIT, and maybe 10 or 20 days into AIT, it wasn't very long into AIT, we had a big meeting, and the war's over. They had shrunk my AIT from 10 weeks to 6, I think it was.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. And then they expanded it back to 10 weeks, and we're just back on normal track. It was really bizarre. I was like, well, there you go.
Then I was offered, because I originally signed up for, the 2 years active.
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, we're disbanding your unit, so you can convert that to additional IRR time, if you wish. And I was like, well, sure, why not? And I regret that now, because that would have paid off in the long run, but that's why I always ended up doing. My full tour was 8.5 years, because I had to do a 6-month extension, doing that conversion over. But yeah, I regret having done that. Yeah, the good old trade-off.
My tour was funny as crap, because when I get out of AIT, I went to jump school. I did jump school, and I figured I'd go to the 82nd.
Right.
I didn't. Everyone went to the 82nd except me and this other trooper, and we went to Hawaii. We were sent to Fort Shafter, and I go to Fort Shafter, and I sit there for 5 weeks. No one had any orders for me. I would, show up at I lived at the replacement battalion. I'd go to formation in the morning, and I was done for the day for 5 solid weeks, until Sergeant Mendiello found me. And I remember I was sitting there watching TV, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just waiting for orders, Sergeant." He goes, and he did something, left for a few hours, came back. "Here's your orders. You're with me." He snatched me up. But I spent the next 2.5. I did a 3-year stint. I did the next 2.5 years in Hawaii. It was quite an interesting. I thought I was going to the Gulf. I did not.
Yeah. So I know, here's a good question. So space opera / traveler for Troll Lord games. So I know you had the Metamorphosis Alpha, and you had Starship Warden, and I know you were talking about that in your in your last stream as well.
We've got, so it needs to be reforged, and it won't take much to, but it's already done. We were actually set to release it. I mean, we had the covers printed, the book ready to be printed and bound when the OGL fiasco exploded on us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that, with all of CNC's success, one of the things that gets kind of forgotten is Amazing Adventures was in its final press from its Indiegogo campaign. We were about ready to go to print with that entire thing. And we had to stop and then redo Amazing Adventures first, because it was already way ahead of Reforged, right? And part of Amazing Adventures is Star Siege, and Star Siege is a traveler-esque game, it's spacefaring and whatnot. So it's still sitting in the wings. And now that finally all of this stuff is kind of through, and one of the reasons we've had such a busy 4 or 5 months is Amazing Adventures and Reforged has all come out. So we're able to the log jam is broken.
Right.
We're moving forward again. So Star Siege is ever on my mind. Jason has 3 projects he has to finish up, and then his next will be, it's going to take him a couple of weeks. That's it. And get Star Siege cleaned up so we can get that game out, because it attaches to the Amazing Adventures umbrella. So we'll definitely have that. Yeah. All
right, cool. And I know I'm like, my players are asking, they were like, hey, ask about the the monstrous the monstrous book for Amazing Adventures, and it was like, is there going to be a reforge of that soon? And I know I spoke to Jason about that when he was on, and he says, yeah, that's certainly, I guess, down the road.
I am hoping that when he's done with Star Siege, that's his next target. That's what I want him to work on. There's also a seafaring book that he was working on, and I can't now remember off the top of my head what the name of that monster book is. It's called monster. I can't. It's something, but yeah, it's going to be very different than the regular monster books. It's going to have like Dracula in it, and Frankenstein's monster, the werewolf, not werewolves. It'll have the Jersey Devil. So it'll have all of these kind of monsters that are legendary cryptos. I guess we got a crypto.
Cryptids. Yeah.
Cryptics that are put in a thing, and we really stat these things out. So if you want to go the X-Files direction or whatever, we've got we've got you covered. And if you need just regular zombies, you can grab the M&T,
right,
and you're golden because it's the same game.
Yeah. It's I've used interchangeably some of the some of the monsters from both Amazing Adventures, because I have the PDF of the first printing of that, and then I have the Castles and Crusades that they're fairly interchangeable. The only thing I think is that the new Reforged has the Sanity for both.
And we did that very specifically to tie Amazing Adventures to CNC.
Yeah.
So that if you're running any of these monsters from your CNC, M&T, and Amazing Adventures, you got your Sanity. Or if you want to have the Sanity stuff in your CNC game, you just grab your AA books and you're golden. You're good to go. So I think it's one of the things that we've never conveyed well enough, that Amazing Adventures and Castles and Crusades, it's the same game system, just a different genre. What Grace is doing at the moment, which is going to be really cool. She's running the Charisma Cats on a Tuesday night stream. It's the 4 of them, and it's hilarious. If you haven't watched it, book next Tuesday, because they're really fun to watch. Because they're all new, right? They're not grizzled old role players. They're all kind of new to this experience. And Grace's plan is to start them in Castles and Crusades and end it in an Amazing Adventures world, which will be really cool.
Right. Yeah, let's see. We have a question here for you. So, is Reforged version of Victorious coming out?
Yes. So, Victorious is in this very special spot. And the reason it is, we've hired Mike Stewart was doing the overhaul of Victorious when the Gyaks contracts landed on us. Now, Mike Stewart, for those of you who don't know, I've known him for many, many, many years. He is a fantastic guy. He's a great writer. He's consistent. He's easy to work with. All of the good that you're looking for someone to work with. Yeah. And he's published with us not only Victorious and 5 or 6 other titles with Victorious, but he's written and we've published Shadows of the Halfling Hall and Verdant Rage. Now, both of those adventures, you can get them on our site. Both of those adventures are quintessential old school style adventures. And just to give you an idea of what I mean on that, I was running, this is years ago, but I was running Shadows of the Halfling Hall with my crew. Now, my crew includes the people who created Castles and Crusades, right? We've been gaming since the 70s and the 80s, and they're not, they're not faint of heart, but 2/3 of the way through Shadows of the Halfling Hall, they were getting so beat up. I remember Matt Golden, co-creator, since he's like, all right, you know what? We're out. We're done with this. This is insane. We can't beat this module. So they left, and I thought, if that's not the most old school thing I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Because, and I was trying to explain to my son the other day, old school isn't this concept that everyone you just get killed. It's so hard. It's not any harder than any other game. It's just there was no safety briefings for us, right? We didn't know what was going on, so we died constantly. CKs didn't know our DMs didn't know what was going on, so they killed us constantly. And it was just, it created this level of fun that is, just cool.
It just is, it's like, you can't quite put your finger on it, but back in 2023, I started a new AD&D campaign, and it lasted for 2 years and 2 months, or 2 years and 3 months, somewhere around there. And I would say and most of the players either were returning, like they hadn't played in decades, and a few were just brand new. And I would say by the 8th session, we were playing weekly. By the 8th session, they were already cautious, but not overly cautious about turning every corner and opening every door. And it was like, and it brought me back to when I first started playing in like 78 or 79, whenever it was, and just remembering, with the graph paper and the pencil and drawing the things, and we don't have a 10-foot pole, we can't go forward without it, we can't, the iron spikes, and just the management that we used to have, because we used to have to keep track of everything, you didn't just have infinite
Oh, yeah.
arrows, you had to keep
Oh,
track
yeah.
of every freaking arrow you fired. And it was just so, and we were afraid, like moving 10 feet was like, we were on edge, moving just 10 feet forward, and checking everything. And that really captures it, and then when you get modern players or players who haven't played it in a long time, and it just starts clicking with them, and they just start,
They love it.
you love it, right?
I love it. And I don't think it's an age thing, that because we played back then or whatever, it has nothing to do with it. I mean, you look at video game players today, they die constantly. I
Yeah.
mean, you are slaughtered in video games, every 15 seconds. You get to respawn, of course, so it's a little bit easier. But
Right.
back in those days, death didn't have this whatever. And I think that every player wants that.
Yeah.
It's funny you should mention graphing out. So Davis, he found this for me. So for those of you who don't know, Davis Chenault is my brother. He co-founded Troller Games, co-created Castle States. He's the one that started running me in games back in 75. Okay, so long ago. And talking about mapping things out, he gave me this.
Oh my God.
That is a city that he mapped out. The city
Okay.
that started the lights off of that comic book stuff. Every street, every house. It's just cool stuff.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, so that's why when I hired Mike Stewart to do when we got the Gyaks stuff, I thought, since Jeff Talanian doesn't want to do this, he's got his own thing going very successfully. So who best to get it? It was either Davis, my brother, or Mike. And Davis has 10 million things that he was doing. So Mike becomes, this is my guy. So I talked to Mike. So Mike will be working on Castle Zagig. Now we're in a good mode. He and I, we had a good meeting yesterday or Monday. What is this? Whatever. Earlier this week. So the Castle Zagig dungeons, he's on into level 3 and working on level 4. But I am going to ask him to start tweaking with Vicky, because he hates it when I call it that. To tweak it with Victorious, because it's a good game and it needs. I mean, it's really good and it needs to be back on the shelf.
Right.
We don't want to just reprint it because it needs to be reforged and kind of brought up a little bit with Siege in it. But I'll bother Mike a little bit about that when he gets a little bit further into that Castle Zagig stuff.
So speaking of shelf, because you mentioned shelf, is there any chance for people to be able to walk into a gaming shop and see Castles and Crusades on the shelf? Like being sold directly to wholesaler or retailers or whatnot.
Yeah. So we've had a nice, interesting journey. Everything about Troller Games would be some weird story. So and I'll keep this one brief, but when we first started the company, we were ACD picked us up. First distributor that picked us up in the year 2000 at Gen Con. James Mishler was the buyer there. And so we dove into ACD. And then later, like a month or so later, we got picked up by Wizard's Attic, which is a consolidator. What Wizard's Attic would do is they would order our stuff and then sell it to distributors.
Right.
That way. And that worked well until he got in trouble with the IRS and went away. But a friend of mine, Aldo Gyaks, started a consolidatorship called Impressions, and then we moved in Impressions. And when Aldo took over, you could find TLG stuff all over the place. There's stores everywhere. Aldo eventually sold his business to Flat River Group. We became kind of, not important to them, and then we were shifting so heavy into direct to consumer that I just kind of dropped the entire distributor thing. Well, about 6 months ago, Aldo and Joe Goodman and I were sitting having dinner and whatnot, and we were just talking. I thought I got to get back into distribution. This is nuts, because we left Flat River Group. They just weren't doing us any good, so we left. And my stuff had been sitting down. So I reached out to ACD, and they picked us up almost immediately. So we're back into ACD. We've been picked up by Universal and GMS. I'm not sure how many more distributors I want to get us in. I really like working with just a few. And ACD is pretty large. It's the second largest distributor in the country. And I know Alliance and Diamond have some troubles with, I think Diamond went bankrupt or something.
Diamond went bankrupt. Yeah.
Yeah. And Alliance is a subsidiary of Diamond. So there's just all kinds of issues.
Right.
And I really like the folks at ACD. So if you do not see any of our material in your local store, ask the retailer there. And high probability they could call their ACD rep and have it shipped to the store.
So that's ACD rep.
Yes, ACD is the distributor. To get that square. If you're in Canada, it's Universal, and if you're in overseas, it's GMS out of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, that's awesome too, because it's like I said, coming out of the OGL, I think that Troll Lord Games was right at the forefront of saying we're going to, this is where we're going with it, and with the, it's a big shift, because it's a big shift now that we're seeing, now that the big boon for Wizards of the Coast, and like, not to get into gaming politics at all, but they certainly don't carry the same market share as they used to. All right. And I don't think that their heart is really into, and this is the Hasbro thing, their heart is not into tabletop role-playing games. So the fact that they're going to lose market share over time, is not a surprise. And other game systems and publishers and whatnot are going to look to fill in that vacuum, and we're seeing that across the board. When I look at conventions and I look to see what is being run, all right, and used to be like most of the tables obviously would be 5th edition, then Castles and Crusades is right up there in second place, for the most part. I mean, especially the ones that I go to, like the Philadelphia Area Game Expo and whatnot, and that's without the Endless Worlds. We'll transition into talking about that as well.
Chuck has done a fantastic job getting us in cons. I think we had 120 games running at Gary Con. So that's
and quite a few running at Page 2, and looking to see that grow. And I mean, Shadow Dark is also there, taking a big cut of the pie in table time, which is great to see as well. And that's, I think that that's something that's really important for
I think Kelsey's done a fantastic job.
Get out there in the cons.
Yeah, she's done a fantastic job, and it just shows, and something I've said for years, that excluding myself, gamers like to game. I mean, and they buy just about any kind of game that is going to be put out there that's decently done, right?
Right.
So, because that's what they want to do at the end of the day. I tend to be that moron that just does, Castles and Crusades, but most gamers, when you talk to them, everyone, Davis has tons of different games on his shelf, because he sees something at the store. Oh, I'll buy this, and he buys it, and plays it 2 or 3 times, whether he likes it or not, it's different. But so I think that certainly Shadow Dark has done a fantastic job, and shows, especially with braced up with the success that CNC's experienced in the last 2 years, 3 years.
Right.
There's plenty of room, and I do think that Wizards of the Coast has shed quite a few of its folks.
No, it's a and that's what I always talk about on my channel, was like, expand your horizons. Don't just get bogged down with one thing, or certainly mix up genres. I mean, there's which is great to have, like, universal system genres, like like Amazing Adventures, where you can open it up into many different things. But keep on expanding your horizon. It was something that Gary talked about a lot in both of his novels and his Mastering the Game. I mean, Gary was like, I don't want you just to play TSR games. I want you to play everything. I want you to run everything. I don't want you just to run your game in your home. I want you to run it at a local gaming shop. I want you to run it at a convention. And Gary was a big, after having read his book, I realized that he was such a big proponent of running at conventions. He really considered that to be the pinnacle of game mastery, was running at conventions. It was like that's where you're really kind of, because you have no control over your players. At that point, you don't know who's going to sit down at the table, and yet you're basically putting on, not just a show of yourself, but you're putting on a show of the game system that you're running as well. And that that's a great thing to see, that, Troll Lord Games, your presence is out there. I played in Chuck's game last year.
Nice.
When I say last year, in January.
Yeah.
I played in his thing in January, and it was phenomenal because he was running White Plume Mountain. All right, so you talk about taking really classic stuff and throwing us into there, and I'm sure he retold the story to you as well with it. The table group, and there was one guy there with his daughter. I think his daughter was like 13 or 14 years old, and she had a blast in it. And there you have that old school appeal, that is going to appeal to a younger generation, and they have just as much fun with it.
They do, and I would go so far as to say that we kind of classify ourselves as gamers, but young people, with the way the video game and Steam is set up, is they probably play more games than we ever thought. Because it's just, there's thousands and thousands of them, and you can download them for free, and you play for 2 days, and then you move on, right? Or whatever it is you're doing. So I think that I've listened to, for many, many years now, it's about quit, honestly, but for years I listened to other publishers. Young people just don't read. They're not going to play games. They're doing different. It's just not the case. They're actually playing more games than ever. It's crazy how much games they are. The question is, can you make whatever it is that you're doing appeal to these people so that they'll stop it and say, "Hey, I want to check this thing out." And that's kind of the critical thing. And that's, well, to your point, playing at conventions is critical to that, so that you can get young bored people. I remember the funniest thing I ever did. This is early on in CNC. This is going back 2008, so we hadn't been out very long, and I was at a convention. I think it's Kubla Khan, Genghis Khan. Okay, no, I think it's Kubla Khan out west somewhere. And it was late. It's like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm wandering through, and I have my badge on, and these two kids are like 12 or 15, I don't know, whatever. And one of them asked who I was, and I said, blah, blah, blah. And then I told him about CNC, and he goes, "Well, can you run us the game?" I said, "Well, I don't have any books." And he said, "Well, do you need it?" I said, No, I'll tell you what. Let's just do it right now. Do you got some dice? And the convention had on each of the tables, they had just the paper taped over the table to protect it. So we pulled out pencils and dice, and I had them roll up some characters, and they wrote the characters on the tablecloth. And then I ran the game from the thing. And we only ran it for about an hour and a half, 2 hours or something like that. And I remember one of them said, "Man, this stuff is badass. This is like bare knuckles role playing." And that was the longest time. I called CNC bare knuckles role playing. Until someone told me to quit. They said, "That makes no sense. What are you talking about?" Somewhere I actually took that tablecloth. It's somewhere down in the warehouse. I saved it. So hold it up.
Awesome.
But that's it. I mean, young people will play the game if it's interesting, and conventions is a great place to do it. I mean, because everyone's looking for something to do.
Now, is any of that design philosophy built into the new starter set?
Yes. So the starter set is interesting. That should be out in about 4 or 5 weeks. I goofed the box up 6 ways of Sunday, so it was horribly delayed. That's all on me. Everybody, I just really goofed it up. But it should be out about 4, 5, 6 weeks. And it's very low key. It's just boiled down to its nuts and bolts. But it is written. Jeremy wrote it for someone who's never played an RPG. It really is for someone who, I don't know what this is. What am I supposed to do? Because even when we were kids, there's that moment of, what? Well, I'm supposed to what? As the game master. Now, once you start doing it, it becomes natural. Oh, this makes sense. But those first, that first leap of faith is, I don't know what I'm doing. So Jeremy kind of wrote it for that. So it is heavily stripped down, and the language is very easy. Jeremy did a great job on that. So yes, without it.
All right, awesome. All right, and so let's see. So we're coming up on May, and so May is going to be Amazing Adventures Month, correct?
Yeah.
And so
Amazing Adventures.
Amazing Adventures. So what is May going to look like for Amazing Adventures? I know that Jason mentioned about several different supplements. One of them was that pirate supplement, which I'm totally stoked on.
That's what I really want to be working, because we need ship combat for castles. We're really lacking in it. So the first thing we'll launch, of course, we just released 6-8 months ago the Amazing Adventures Reforged books. It's the Player's Handbook and it's the Chronically People's Guide. I think there's 3 adventures out for it now.
Mhm.
We're on 3 in the screens. So fully playable. You get the bundle on the site, the whole 9 yards. And we ran quite a few AA games at GaryCon and at Page. But up next will be Rings of the Red God. We'll kick the month off with releasing that on the 5th, I think, of May. So that'll be out. I am pressuring Jason to finish up the Brotherhood of William St. John and the Legacy of William St. John. This is St. John is this huge kind of order that he's built a lot of stuff around. So it'll be a nice supplement to your AA stuff. And then there's the fiction book that goes with it. So that'll be very cool. We're hoping to get those both out in May. And then there's a couple of other things we're going to revisit and kind of roll out. And if I can actually get my stuff together, I'm going to do my short Alien adventure. I've done a little tease stuff for it, so I'd like to get that out in May too. So we're going to do a whole lot of Amazing Adventures stuff. And for those of you who don't know, Amazing Adventures is a multi-genre version.
Mhm.
If you think Castles and Crusades, it's Siege Engine Fantasy. If you think Amazing Adventures, it is Siege Engine everything else. Superheroes, World War II, whatever, zombies, whatever you're doing. And we'll do specialized supplements for it, Star Siege, Tainted Land, stuff like that. But if you get the AA books, if you want to have a fellow on a motorcycle, shooting a machine gun, scoop up your Amazing Adventures book. The rules are in it for both of those things.
Right. Yeah. Now, another thing I've been really getting into and looking at, I've been looking at, some other game systems and everything that, very specific books for domain play. Is that something that...
so by domain, what do you mean?
Like beyond high level, but, like
running
kingdoms and, big merchant corporation, whenever, running guilds or schools of magic, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I have returned as of last week to Alstrag, and this is our gigantic. Alstrag is in the world of arid hell, for the lack of anything else, and I'm writing it so that you can play low level, but it's really designed for high level. It's really designed for godlike characters to kind of wander through fighting archdevils and all of these ludicrously powerful creatures. So that is for the domain type of stuff. That is definitely coming on track. I was working on it with Codex of the Plains before the OGL mess hit, and all of it got derailed. But I was very happy to sit down, and I wrote a good chunk of 818 this week, and we'll continue right after the stream. In fact, I'll dive right back into it. So we will be having some domain stuff for sure.
Yeah, and I know you have both the you have the devils and the angels for like
yes.
So those are coming soon, right? They're
yeah. So I've got I'm waiting for 2 pieces of art for Infernum, and then it's done. So that's just wonderful. And Exaltum, Jason's doing his final read through now. That should be on my desk. I can't remember if it's Monday or Friday, but it's very, very soon. And then it goes into editing. We've got a little bit of art to hack through on Exaltum, but once Infernum is done, that'll free up a bunch of artists to shift over to that. I'm hoping that this summer both of these books land. They're overdue, and they're filled with great content. So it just needs to be back out there.
Yeah, and I'm expecting. I just realized this morning, I wake up at just pre-dawn. So I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and that's when I saw your Wednesday post on on things saying it's I forget if that was when it was 1 o'clock 1 o'clock Central, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot that we're a different time zone, right? I'm like, oh damn, I gotta log in there, and then try to change the timing up on it, and then I'm looking and I was like, because then I'm looking on Facebook and I'm seeing people put up their pictures of hey, I got my armory, my armory is. I'm like, well, damn, I didn't get my armory yet. I said, let me go look at the Kickstarter and see. I was like, well, crap, I didn't realize that I had to put in for the shipping. I was like, shit. And so I didn't put in this shit. So it was like 5:20 this morning. I'm putting in for the shipping information. I was like, I'm hoping my wife doesn't wake up, and I'm there putting that in. So I'll probably get it sometime next week because you guys do deliver very fast.
The code is caught up, and so it should go out very soon.
Yeah, so I was like, all right. I said, because that would have been great if I had it now and we could have, hey, I got these in the mail today.
Now
I'll have to wait, but But yeah, I'm clearing space behind me because you can already see like right behind me is that's my Castles and Crusades
I see the white
thing,
box.
and then right next to that is Amazing Adventures, and then I have to clear space because I'm waiting on like 15 books from you guys from
It's
all of the Kickstarters that I backed. It's like
yeah.
the 5 or 7. I think it's like 5 books. I did the 4 plus. I do buy one plus the other 4 of the Worlds of Gary
Okay.
Gygax.
Yeah.
And then so I have that. I have the Armory coming, so that puts me up to around like 7 or 10 books, I think. And then there's the other 2, so that's like 12. And then there's probably another 3 in there. Well, I got the Hermit already.
If the
So
Infernum and Exaltum will be rolling
yeah.
out.
So
And if you got, and I'm pretty sure you did, the stretch rewards gave you another 4. There's 10 total Gygax books coming.
yeah. So yeah, I got the 2 pamphlet sized books. Yeah, those already came. I got the
Oh no, I mean for
East
the World Builders. There's 10 World Builder books.
Yeah. So that's yeah, I'm running out of shelf space. That's all I got to say. Yeah. And then Star Siege, when that, so is Star Siege going to be a Kickstarter or is that going to be just a direct?
Probably direct. We're probably
Just
going to
direct?
roll that out and put it direct. We're going to do the next Kickstarter. We'll do it'll be a backer kit campaign for the Adventurers backpack. To reprint that because this first printing is almost gone. I think there's 2 or 3 boxes left. What we're doing a little different on that one, it will not go to crowdfunding until the art is done, the writing is done, and the editing is done. So we can go. My hope is that by the time we launch in late May, early June, or probably late May, that the book is in layout, so that we can go to the printers and get it. So we aren't waiting 6 months. That's really the goal on the Adventurers backpack.
All right. And here's Agile saying, yeah. His wife is sighing. Yeah, yeah.
We have had a very productive couple of years, and the next 18 months are going to be equally as productive.
Right.
And the crew here, I mean, everyone at Troller Games has done a just fantastic job. So we're able to do that, and then everyone out there who has supported us has been just brilliant in helping us do this. And as long as this all keeps going, we'll keep putting out this great content.
And I'm going to put out my wish list one more time. All right. Every time I've spoken to you, it's spell cards for Castles and Crusades.
I greenlit those at Game Hole last year. I haven't seen them yet, but yeah, I'll talk to Grace and Chuck and see where we are.
I'm telling you, I'm sitting here. I was like, it just, to me, I can just picture my players, taking their spells that they have and putting them into like a little card holder kind of thing and having like, this is my traveling spell book and it's all right there and everything. Every one of us would have a deck for sure for every class that's available. I was like, these things will sell like wildfire, because I know the Adventurers backpack, those cards are awesome. And I was like, if
people really like them. I love them.
If we all had the spell, it would be great. So anyway, let's see what else we have here. So Starship, what's the word on Starship Warden? I know you were talking about that yesterday, so I'll let you just, because I know that's huge.
Starship Warden, the license will pull from us quite suddenly, and it had something to do with other deals, and Jim was still alive at the time, and I was more than happy to say, pull them. If you have the opportunity to do X, definitely pull them. So they did. And of course, Jim died not too long after that. So my understanding is that the Starship Warden IP is tangled up in a bunch of gray area of who owns it and who doesn't. So we can't do anything with Starship Warden. I would love to revisit that. The Goya is an adventure that I wrote for the Starship Warden. That adventure will be specifically rolled into Star Siege and kind of retooled a little bit. Because I love the cover that Peter Bradley did for it. It's just a badass cover, so I want to keep it. And the adventure was really it's kind of a jump into Warden, and we'll retool it a little bit when we do the Star Siege stuff. So the Goya will be out probably within a month or so of Star Siege coming.
Okay. And Star Siege, just to remind us, so that's you're hoping summertime for that, or
I would like to see that done. It depends on how fast Jason finishes the 3 projects on his desk now, and one he should be done in the next few days. And if you get the other 2 done, I would love him to just sit down. I really don't. It's not going to take much because Star Siege relies on Amazing Adventures for its mechanics. So it's really just kind of a
right?
spacefaring, right? So I think it's just going to take some cleaning up, a couple of weeks of work, and then we can roll it out. We're going to soft cover it. We'll do it in our print shop. We're not going to do any crowdfunding, and then it's just on the site, selling. So that's what I'm hoping happens by July, August timeframe.
Awesome. Yeah. So really looking forward to it. I think that 2025 is already shaping up to be a great year for you guys, and you've got a lot of things in the a lot of irons in the fire. And probably all be unleashed by like 2026, and you'll probably be in in a great position as far as your printing is concerned, because I'm sure those kind of buildings go up fast. You know what I'm saying? It's like
they're telling me 80 days from groundbreaking, which is just basically 2 months, and I'm hoping there's no delays and all that. The Logan, the guy that's running the construction side of it, is fired up and motivated, which is a huge thing. So I don't anticipate it taking months and months on end.
Yeah. So that's I'm really excited about that. So con wise, I know you said you're going to.
We got ACD Open House, which is, of course, for retailers. And then after that, I want to say there's Daikon in there somewhere, but Gen Con will be in August in Game Hole, Gary Con. Chuck's got a more exhausted list of where we have a, just present. We aren't, but we've got a footprint where games are being run. But
Right.
where the trolls will be, it's Daikon, Archon, Gen Con, and then Game Hole for the rest of the year.
Then that's the rest of this year, and then you're going to go back to Philadelphia next year, or
that was a fun show. It was great. I mean, it was good for trolls, but it was also just a lot of fun. So we'll definitely be Chuck and I in Dakota.
I'm sure you'll have your shipping straight away from that too. Right? So,
we're going to ship it now. Get there in time. That was crazy.
If you have your own fleet of trucks, you'll be good, right? You need that vertical integration to avoid that kind of thing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it expand. Whether it's Castle Crusades or any of the other Troll Lord games, just expanding into some of the other conventions as well. Because there's a lot more in like the Northeast. I know because Philadelphia is probably the most Northeast that you've come, correct?
We used to go to one in Maine, but that was 20 years ago. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
We have almost no presence in the Southeast, Northeast, and on the West, and we've got to fix that. So that is definitely on the radar. Now, how we fix it, that hasn't been resolved yet, but we've definitely, especially Northeast. I mean, there's a couple of people that live in the Northeast part of this country. So.
There's a few, and it's a lot of smaller cons. I wouldn't say that you're going to go to a convention with 75 people in it. Right. You probably need a certain amount of capacity to bring it in. But there's a lot of like conventions that are running around 300, 600 people. And those are and they already have organized play. I think it's just a matter of getting the organized play to take over there. So, and let's finish up with that one. So the organized play is called Endless Worlds, correct?
Yes.
And so how does that work? Like, do people sign up for it and then they go to conventions that's already there, or are you looking for people to run organized play at?
All of the above. If you go to the website, troller.com, I believe, let's get there right in there. There's a whole section for organized play. If you go to get involved and hit Endless Worlds, it's going to give you, you can see what we're doing, and that's where Chuck keeps the calendar updated and whatnot. Or you can join us in one capacity, and that it has a button you click that says join us here. And that's going to go to Chuck, and then you're going to sit down and say, hey, Chuck, I want to run some games, or I'm going to be at a convention, or what can I do to help, or, whatever. And Chuck will take care of you from there. And the hope is that we do get a better footprint in other and little, especially smaller cons, 300, 600,
Right.
700 people. That would be fantastic. I mean, because that's the heart of it, right? I mean,
Yeah. So I'll reach out to Chuck because I do have a convention that I would love to bring bring the games to.
that'd be great.
And then that's about 600 people. At least this year, it's supposed to be 600. It's actually this upcoming weekend is Rising Phoenix in Milford, Massachusetts.
Oh, nice.
And so I think that would be a great con, for that. And they already have the organized play there for both Pathfinder and Fifth Edition, So Troll Art Games should be. So I'll reach out to Chuck.
That'd be great.
Provided he's recaptured his again. He was hacked, right? So,
yeah, he's been having a rough 10 days. It's been really rough, and it's not slowed down at all. I mean, it's gotten crazy. So everyone's giving Chuck a little bit of room to fix his.
And I was like,
it's very frustrating.
Yeah, no, I've had it happen, and yeah, it's like, what the hell? It's like, and then it's like it takes a lot to untangle that kind of, because you have to reach out to all your friends, and be like, listen, if you get anything that's that doesn't sound like it's me, that wasn't me, kind of thing, and it gets crazy, So
I feel for him. TLG's been hacked a couple of times, so I get it. It's tough as a pain in the butt, but reach out to him anyways. He needs the distraction from from that mess.
Yeah, I'll shoot him a direct message and say, hey, I'd like to help out, in any way I can with the Endless Worlds and see where we can go from there. All right, let's get up with a question. All right, so would Troll Art Games ever produce something like a D&D Shady Dragon or a D&D Rogue Gallery booklet for NPCs? You got Rogue. I'll show you.
Yeah, we've got 2 books. The NPC.
Yeah, you got 2 books. You have the Registry.
Yes.
And you have the Register and the Sketches.
Sketches, yes.
Called
skirmishes.
Called NPC
Almanacs. Yeah.
Yeah, almanacs, and they're both. One's the Sketches is like a several paragraphs of a description of the character, and then the Registry is the stat blocks
it's
for
just
a variety of characters. So it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah, we have the Rogues Gallery already. I'm not sure what the Shady Dragon Inn is, but I'm always interested. I mean, something small like that, I assume that's what that would be.
Yeah,
would be kind of cool. I mean, we're always interested to look at anything that grows the resources that people running CNC games can dive into and say, hey, I can do this, I can do that. I got this here, got that there.
Are there any reoccurring NPCs in Castles and Crusades that would be along the same lines of did any of your characters show up in the books or in adventures and whatnot?
My characters, well, I ran the game, so it's Mac and Todd and all the people that sat at my table. But the World of Erd, that stuff is just filled with their characters. I mean, Luther, the God Luther is what Todd's character. The God Aristobulus is Mac's. Sativa is Sarah's. So it just goes down the line. But yeah, definitely. I merged them into it, and that the whole kind of epic story of the Winter Dart is the campaign I ran from 2006 to whatever year, 1990 something to 2006. So that stuff is definitely everywhere.
That's one book I don't have yet, so that's something I'm going to have to pick up along the way too. You have to slow down. It's like
that's the key. I told everyone I want this year to be an extraordinarily productive release year, and we're doing good so far. I want it a lot. Codex Germania, we are sold out. Sorry, we don't have any here. You might try eBay or I guess eBay is just better. Go to biblio.com. They do pretty good on used stuff. And check in with Noble Knight. They may have some stuck away somewhere. But Germania is now, we're redoing it. First, we're going to redo the Nordica. It's going to be retitled called Codex Etica. But Germania will be redone for sure.
Yeah, after the Eda. right?
Yes.
That's after the Eddas, the poetic Eddas.
Yes. And
So
that's supposed to land on my desk on the 30th.
mm. How about one for Japanese culture, so Japanese mythos.
So we were set to, that was going to be the next one we did when we had to kind of shift gears. But it's definitely in the workings. I'm going to have to find someone who's, if Finn isn't someone who's very comfortable with it, we want to do a Sumerian as well. I really kind of like to do everything that appeared in the original Deities and Demigods. I think that'd be kind of cool. Those were great. I mean, I know they were fantastic at the table. So it'd be nice to kind of revisit all that stuff.
Right. I know Germania's quite good. Actually, they're all good, and they're so well written as far as they're almost well, no, they're academic pieces that are gamified. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's how everything from Troll Lord Games lore standpoint reads to me. It's like when you go into Aird or you go into any of the codexes for the mythologies and everything, they really are academic, and then just with some gamification along with them.
We do that sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you're going to get you're going to get something along the lines of like a really interesting read. Even if you're not using them, they're there's a lot there just to read and learn about, and then if you decide, hey, I'm going to use some of these mythos monsters, be careful with those mythos monsters though.
They can be tough.
They are really, you'll have something that's about 6 inches tall and then it does 5d6 damage when it bites you. It's like, whoa, where'd this thing come from? Oh, it's a mythos creature, that's why.
It was fighting over at one point. Yeah, without a doubt.
It has half a hit die, but it deals out the damage of a frost giant hitting you with a club. It's like, damn, these things are crazy. I like throwing those at my players every once in a while. It's like, oh, this thing looks kind of cute, and ends up being the Vorpal rabbit from Monty Python.
What is that? One of the funniest encounters I've ever had. Davis ran it, and it's in the Arduin Gomorrah books, the original Arduin Gomorrah books. And one of the monsters in there's they're kill kittens. I didn't know they were called kill kittens at the time, but it's this little box of kittens. And I remember running into those kittens, and I picked the box up. I don't know what I was going to do. I just picked the box up, and then these kill kittens just eviscerated my character. It was so funny. I'm like, oh, what's going on? They're kittens.
Yeah, those are,
that was Sarah Clem did that, but it does sound like a Davis name.
You're here with Davis's the question. Sativa.
Yeah.
I need a spreadsheet to start keeping track of the Troll Lord books. I have and still need. Yeah.
It's a lot. We pride ourselves in being a full service, full stop publishing company. That's one of the things, one of the philosophies behind Castles and Crusades, because the game, once you get it, you're golden. But what we're trying to do is give a lot of it comes from when I was running games so heavily in the 80s, stuff that I needed, right? I need to know how big a village is or whatever. So we've got an engineering villages. So we're trying to create that library for all gamers. No matter what game you're playing, you can go grab this, this book. Say, okay, I need a guild. Here's a guild. Okay, I can do this, drop it in my game, and move on.
Right.
That's kind of the public philosophy.
Yeah, I was looking at that book too on your website. I was like, wow, that looks really interesting. And it's like, look at my shelf space. Look at that. I was like, it's like, one of these days I'm gonna have to spring on my wife. I need a third bookshelf. Just to carry it.
We had to buy these two because it was getting ridiculous. Just books piled everywhere.
Yeah. So and I was doing my spring cleaning, and I was like, wow, I got a lot of stuff that I can move on and make up some more room for all the new stuff I have coming in, and kind of try to sort that stuff out. So anyway, let's see. So the forgetful DM. I'm looking at some comments here. So the forgetful DM, nice. Hmm. Take my money, please. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. Take my money. I was trying to figure out like where's that coming from. All right. Now I see it.
Thank
Yes.
you. Grateful.
Yeah.
And I want to thank everybody out there who supported TLG for so many years. It's very, very, very much appreciated. It really is.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to support a company, whether it's a game company or any kind of company that actually values their customers, because sometimes they don't,
No,
and
very
it's like
odd.
shocking, and I can understand why like huge corporations treat you like they don't care.
Yeah.
I expect that from a huge corporation, but when you're dealing with like smaller companies and they're like kind of blasé about true customer service,
Yeah.
and that's why I mentioned, I was like, I know that, I put in the order this week. I will, like, this morning, those books will be on my doorstep, probably sometime early next week, because that's one thing, you guys are fast with getting that stuff out.
We try
Um,
to get anything
yeah,
out within 24 hours, unless it's a weekend, then it'll be Monday. But
yeah, yeah.
we try
So,
to do.
but yeah, no, very much appreciative of the just what you guys are doing out there. And again, like I said, very early on, it's like you're not just worrying about yourselves, you're looking at other of your colleagues or just associates or whatever, and wishing them luck on their endeavors, right? Because Jeff Talanian does his own thing, and you're like, hey, all the support to him. And
Oh yeah. I
you know
really think I think that the community at large is, whether you're just running at your table or whether you're publishing or whatever, it's a huge and vibrant community, and it's probably one of the nicest communities ever. I remember years ago I lost my wallet at Dragon Con, and this was in the days I was really irritated with credit cards. I'm always irritated with credit cards, but I was more irritated with credit cards. So I had most of everything was in cash, and I had $600 in cash in my wallet. And I thought, well, I'm done for now. But the next day I checked lost and found, and there was my wallet. Not a dime had been taken out of it. Someone had turned it over. And then everyone in, there's 10 people in that lost and found area. DragonCon's huge. No one took the money. No one took the money at any stage of where it went. And that was kind of an eye opener to me, that this community is a little bit different. And I don't mind. I mean, when I saw company posts hitting last week or the week before last, we here at TLG, we sometimes get a little bit insulated because we do everything in the United States. And I do this specific, I mean, there's a bunch of reasons, but one of the reasons is the uncertainty in the foreign markets. And this is proven time and time and time again, not just with this latest stuff. It caught me a little bit off guard when I saw how, I don't want to say panicked, but the hard spot that a lot of publishers are in. I was thinking, well, it's not, if you're just doing books and boxes and you can get most of that done here pretty easy. The dice is really the big thing. And I'm talking to a company right now that they think they can handle the dice issue here in the United States. I don't know that that's the case, but so even that may not be that big of an issue. So I don't mind reaching out. And I know a lot of these guys I know for years and years and years, right? So I don't want them to suffer. I mean, they're good friends of mine. So,
Yeah, I had made that comment, earlier on when the tariff, concerns were first arising and everything, and I said, first of all, it doesn't apply directly to books, for the most part,
right.
And then secondly, your cardboard boxes and everything, that's where, and the dice and everything. I was like, listen, bottom line, I took it from a gamer's perspective, right? And I said, I need maybe 3 sets of dice, and I have some, I have a set of dice that goes all the way back to 1981, so how many how many sets of dice do I actually need, and so if a set of dice from from whatever country is going to cost me $30, which is probably like a 300%, that's like a 300% tariff on it. If it's going to cost me $30, I'm buying it once for a lifetime. I'm saying it's like, it's going to literally last me for the next, I don't have 40 years left, of playing, so it will last me a lifetime. It's not, if the game
You're
is
right.
good, if the game is good enough for me, what if I pay $120 for it? You know what I'm saying? I'm running my AD&D first edition books. It's like 79.
That is actually a great point, because these games that we buy aren't. You buy Monopoly and you've had it, right, for 50 years. Keep playing
Yeah.
the same over and over again. So that's definitely something people should keep in mind. I think from both sides, publishers and just gamers in general.
Yeah, I was more panicked, to be honest with you. I was more panicked with the OGL and the OGL impact that would have had on the hobby if they didn't back down from that, because that would have killed everything.
Oh, it'd have been a mess.
If they revoked that would have killed everything. And I'm more worried about how they're doing, like these companies like Steam or whatever. It's like, well, you thought you bought it, but
yeah,
we can pull that at any time, and it's like
I'm not surprised, but it's very
but that's crazy.
Yes.
I was like, see, that's the kind of thing that can kill a hobby.
Yes.
Is like just that's a true legitimate fear of wait a second, you can I purchased a game for $70, let's say, and it's on my Steam library, and you could pull it from my Steam library without any without any stopping you from doing that. That's, to me, that's nuts. That's like, oh, forget this stuff. I'm going back to my my CD, my CD-ROMs, for some of these games. The good old days of DOS, right? They couldn't take it from you.
I remember those days.
But yeah, I'm aging myself there with that. But
no kidding.
It's the future is not, the future of technology is not always a positive thing, and that's why we can always rely on our books.
Yep.
Our books are forever.
At the end of the day, from just a simple power outage to someone yanking that thing from your library, at the end of the day, if it's sitting on the shelf behind you, you're golden.
Yeah. And you can find, I'll never touch 30% of the books that are on my shelf. I'll never end up actually running. It's like I have more there than I could ever possibly run.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, though, because you get inspiration from all that stuff. It's good.
All right, let's see. We're gonna see who we have here, and let's see, Bill. Hey, Bill, how's it going? Get some good gaming going at weekend convention. Veterans play for free. Everyone else pays a nominal fee, who goes to veterans organizations. Oh, is there a con that he's talking about? Let's see.
Death Angel, that's how I do it.
Yeah. Patrons, fans of the channel who are veterans. My dad and 3 uncles all served in the military. My dad and all of my uncles served in the military. They cheated during World War II. If you recall, during World War II, they couldn't take every single son, and yet my father's entire family, because he was the youngest, all of his brothers, he had 7 brothers, and all 7 of them served. At the same time. So it was like I guess the Sullivan brothers thing didn't happen yet, or whatever, but it just slipped through, and so that all of them served. And so I know exactly what it's like to have, a whole family background, steeped in military service.
Yep.
So, okay. Well, I'm going to let you go, and I'm looking at the time. Oh, my wife will be home in 10 minutes. She's working. I'm home because I'm semi-retired, so I'm home. She's working. And the last thing I could do is be sitting here as she's pulling her car in, and I'm playing a game or something. Right. So Stephen, it was great to see you. It was great to have you on. Everyone in the chat, thanks for all of your comments and everything. And again, thanks to Troll Lord Games for everything that you guys are doing over there. And I know you're all you're all at the grindstone, just churning stuff out, as quickly as you can. So many different moving parts, at one time. It really is quite amazing.
Well,
How much you
thanks for
guys
having
are
me on,
doing.
Richard. Thanks
Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. And no, not tonight. Saturday night. Saturday night is my Shadow Dark. Tomorrow night's my AD&D first edition. So we're playing around a little bit with the dates and days and everything for my campaigns, because I tried doing a bi-weekly campaigns, and bi-weekly campaigns don't work for me. I don't think they work for my players. It's not consistent enough. So it's kind of hard to get things launched, doing that. We need consistency. So we're shifting to weekly for all 3 of my campaigns.
Weekly's the best. Thank you, Death Angel. It's very kind of you to say.
Yeah, let's see. Agile. Where? Oh, here. Let's see.
Thank you, Agile.
Steven's such a great guest to have. Always try to catch him whenever he's on. Well, he's on almost every day on his Twitch channel, right? You guys are running things on that Twitch almost every day. I was like, wow, there's so much information coming out of you guys.
I know and that's one of the reasons we're doing it. There's so much going on, we can't keep up with it, so we have to regroup, and Twitch is our place. So.
Okay, everyone. So you all have a great one, and Mac, if you can, switch to my AD&D first edition campaign, and you're welcome to join that, because we've already had 2 player characters die in the first and second session, so we always have room. We always have room for more. All right, Steve. Thanks a lot. And thanks, everyone else, thanks for coming on in. I'm going to hit the end stream, and it'll take about 3 seconds, so don't make any silly faces or